Hello everyone, welcome to HBN Infotech Tutorials. In this tutorial you will learn how to create 1 graph paper in Microsoft Word using Word VBA and advanced line techniques. This tutorial is a best example of for next loop and hence it will be helpful for those who want to learn the practical use of VBA. You can download these templates on my website. This code works better in Word 2007. If you have 2010 or later versions, then you will need to save your Word file in compatibility mode so that you can use old Word VBA features. Okay, as the first step, let me show you how to save Word file in compatibility mode. Start with a blank document. Go to the file, click on save, choose a location on your PC, type a file name. For the save as type, select Word 97 and 2003 document and click on save. This would save your file in a compatibility mode. So you could see compatibility mode on the title bar. Before proceeding to the second step, let us have a closer look. This graph paper is 18 cm by 27 cm. That is 180 mm by 270 mm. It means that there are 180 lines across and 270 lines down. And there is one more thing to observe, that is that every 10th line is a major grid line and is slightly thicker than the others. So to create a graph paper for an absolute size, the next thing you will want to do is to set the units of measure to centimeter. Now let me show you how to do that. To set the units of measure to centimeter, go to the file, click on options and then click on advanced tab and then scroll a little. Under the display section, you could see show measurements in units of, and from here choose centimeters from the drop down. Click on the OK button. The next step is to use the VBA and start the coding process. But before that, I would like to tell you that the document needs to be completely empty without any objects, text or other shapes. Then only the code will work as expected. Now to start the VBA, you can click on the developer tab and then click on Visual Basic. This would launch the Visual Basic editor. In case if you don't find the developer tab, you can enable it by going to the file, options, customize ribbon and then selecting developer and clicking on the OK button. In the older versions of Microsoft Word, the steps might be slightly different. Now there are two ways to create macros. One is you can hard code line by line. The other method is to use the macro recorder. In this tutorial, I'll be using both the methods. In this example of creating a graph paper, I would like to automate the process of creating lines and applying colors to it using macros. Now let me show you how to do that. Now let me show you how to record a macro to create a vertical line. To do that, go to the developer tab, click on record macro, type a name for the macro. Now let me say HBN vertical line. Okay, so I'm using underscores instead of spaces. So now for the store macro in, select the file. So in your case it could be document1 or so, and then click on the OK button. Now whatever you do is recorded. So now go to the insert tab, click on shapes and then click on line. Now hold down your shift key and draw a vertical line of any smaller length. Now, um, keeping the line still selected, you can go and change the shape outline color from the Format tab. I would prefer this color, and I would also prefer the line thickness of off point, that is this one. Now I'll stop the macro. So you can stop the macro recording from the status bar or going to the developer tab and then click on the stop recording. So now if you head over to the Visual Basic, you could find a folder called modules, and you can just reveal it by clicking on the plus sign over here and then double click on the new macros file that's there. So you could see the macro coding that is done for you automatically. Now we are going to use this code for the automation process. Now if you're seeing a red font like this, it surely means that there is an error. Well, don't panic, we'll just correct this in a moment. What you will need to do is we will need to just bring this second line to the same line. So by just simply deleting this extra space. So please remember that you are not deleting this dot. Bring everything in the same line, click outside. The code is corrected automatically. Now let us test this whether it works by coming back to the document. Now I'll run this macro. I'll just go to the macros, select the macro by the name and click on the run. The code works perfectly. Now let us know what is the code for duplicating this line. So to know that, we will record one more macro. I'll just click on the record macro on the status bar. This time I'll give a name, let's say duplicate shape, and then I'll choose the file name here and then click on the OK button. And now I'll just hold down the control key and click and drag the shape. So this would duplicate. Now I'll stop the macro. Now let us see what is the code for duplicating. So I think this first line is enough. So we don't need the additional two more lines of codes. Now we can shorten this code by removing unwanted coding. So when you record a macro using the macro recorder, it actually captures all the attributes of a particular item, which is actually not required for the coding. So I mean, it's not very important. So now in this case, the first line, second line and the fourth line are important. So this according to me is not very important. I'll delete this. And also the third and the last line I would delete. And in case of duplicating the shapes also, I only need the first line of the code. I don't need the rest two other lines of codes. Now we will have to make more duplicates of this vertical line. Now in our case we need 180 vertical lines. So doing this manually would be a tedious task. So now we would use the macro to automate this process. So to do that, I would use the for next loop. So the for next loop structure is something like this. So it starts with the keyword for, and there would be a counter, and the counter represents the number of times the macro needs to run. So there will be a start of the counter and end of the counter, and this step is optional. We will discuss this later. And then later there will be statements like the task 1, task 2, like that. and then even this is optional, and then the ending of the for next loop would be by using the keyword next, and then we'll use the same counter here. So whatever counter you have used here, the same thing we'll be using it here as well. So now let us begin. I'll go to the VBA window. Now I'll write for, and here I can write a name. The name can be anything, let's say HBN, and then I would use equals 1 to 180 because we want 180 lines, and then I would say next. See, this would be the structure. So between these two lines we would add the other this one I would copy and paste it here. This is the code for duplicating. I would simply copy this and paste it here. So what this would do is this would duplicate the selected item 180 times. Besides this, we would also need to add one more code after the loop, and that is active document dot shapes dot select all. So why I'm adding this code? This is to select all the shapes on the document. So manually selecting all the documents would be difficult. That is the reason I'm adding this code after the loop. So first, programmatically it would create a vertical line, then make 180 copies of it, then select all the lines together on the active document. So now I go back to the document. I'll delete these lines here. Now let us run that from here. I'll just go to the macros and select the name of the macro and click on the run. It takes some time. It has taken about 30 seconds. So now if you scroll down, you could see a lot of lines created this way, but I don't think all the 180 lines are visible, so it has gone out of the view. So we will just correct this in a moment. Don't deselect these shapes. Keeping this still selected, go to the format and then click on align, and then click on align top. So this aligns all the lines in one straight line. Then go to the align again, then click on distribute horizontally. So this would reveal all the shapes, and also it will make the lines even spaced. Now keeping the shapes still selected, go to the group and click on group. Then go to the width and type 18 centimeter and press the enter key. So this would make the group in for 18 centimeter. That's what we require. Now go to the align again and then click on the center. Now we will just type the height for this. The height would be 27 centimeter. Now again we'll go to the align and click on the middle. So we have created the vertical lines for the graph paper. The next thing what we will need to do is to change the line thickness of every 10th line here, and also to change the color of the line. So I would just create a temporary line here and record a macro to learn what is the code for that. So before that, let me change the line weight to something like this. So then only the code will be revealed. So So now I will just record the macro. I would say HBN line thickness, and then I would select this file to store the macro in, and then click on the OK button. Now I'll just go to the shape outline and then choose this color a little bit darker, and then I'll choose the line weight as 3/4. Now I'll stop the macro recording. Now let us go to the Visual Basic Editor and check what is the code for it. So there are 5 lines of code, and again here we would need to remove the unwanted codes. So I think the first one is sufficient and the fourth one is sufficient. Rest others we can remove because it talks about tint shade and visibility and other stuff, so it's not required. So now we will need to create a for next loop again to automate this process. So since we have already created a for next loop, I'll just copy this and make some modifications. I'll just copy this and paste it here. So we cannot have duplicate macros, so we will need to rename this. So I'll just rename this as every 10th, and I'll just delete these codes. That's not required anymore. Now since we will need to apply this code for every 10th of the object, we will need to add a keyword called step and simply write 10 over here. What this would do is this would apply the the codes for every 10th item. So now I'll delete this as well. I'll just copy this code that we recently recorded for the line thickness. I'll just copy this one and paste it here. And I also want the line weight. I'll just copy this and I'll paste it here. And I will let the last line of code I won't delete the last line of code because selecting all the shapes is a tedious task, so I'll just let it be there. Now you will need to add one more line of code that actually helps select every 10th item. So the code is active document dot shapes dot item. So the item, for the item name, I'll use this keyword, this variable name itself, dot select. What this would do is this would help select every 10th item of the selected shapes. So now we'll just go back to the document. I'll delete this temporary line. Now I'll select the shape group. Before running the code, you will need to ungroup this. I'll go to the format, group, and click on ungroup. Now keeping the selection still active, just go to the developer tab, macros, and then run the newly created macro. Okay, now the change in the line thickness has done. I think it has taken around 30 seconds, but you could observe that the last line is not changed. That shouldn't be an issue. We'll change this manually. I'll just click this, go to this one and change the color and the line thickness. Now we will need to select all the lines and group it together. We will do this programmatically. We'll just go here and I'll simply create a new code let me say sub select all items. Okay, and I'll just simply copy and paste this code that selects all the items on the page. Now we'll just simply run this. You can run it from here as well. So if you come back to the document, you could see that all the items are selected. Now we will group them together. Click on group. So now we are done with all the vertical lines. So now the next step is to create the horizontal line. The code for this will be same, except that the first line will change. So that is, we will need to learn what is the code for the creation of horizontal line. So now I'll just record a simple macro for that. So now I'll just click on the record macro. Now let me say hbn underscore horizontal line. Let me say creation. Okay, I'll choose this file and click on OK. Now just create a horizontal line just like this. Keep in mind that you will need to hold your shift key while drawing the line. Now I'll just stop this macro. We'll also delete this line, it's not required anymore. Now we'll just see what's the code for that. So I think this is the code for that. So there is no error this time, so we can simply use this. So what I'll do is I'll just copy this first set of code, paste it, and rename this as horizontal. And I'll just replace the first line of code with this one. We'll simply have to delete this one and paste that. And you will also need to change the number of copies. So for the numbers down, we will need 270 copies. So I'll simply type 270 here. Now before running this, you will need to go to the document and take a new file. So don't run that code on the same file. You will need an empty one. Just press Ctrl N keys. This would launch a new file. Now run this code here. Go to the developer, macros, and you can select the, well, you don't have to panic. Since the code is in a different file, it's not visible here. We'll fix this in a moment. So we'll just go back to, see, you will also need to note down the name of the active document. It says document 2. Now we'll just go back to the code window, and you could see project document 2. So I'll just select this one and then say insert module. So this will insert a module there too. Now I'll just copy this code from this file to that one. So this makes the code available, and I guess we will need this code as well. The second set of code that colors and increases the line thickness of alternate lines. So we'll need this as well. And here too we will need to change the number. So this needs to be 270. So now let us go back to the document. Now let us run this. I'll just click on macro. So here you see both the codes are available. First let me run this one. I'll just run this. Now again, this time it has taken 30 more seconds. Now we will need to align this to the left edge. So I'll say align left and then distribute vertically and then group this together. Now set the height as 27 centimeter and now we'll just set the width for 18 centimeter. Now we'll just align center and align middle. So the next thing what you want to do is you want to just change the line thickness and color of every 10th line. So before doing that, we will just ungroup this and we'll just keep the selection active and then run the second macro. The second macro has taken a little more time, say about 40 seconds. So now I think the last line we will need to change the color, set the color. I'll just select the last one, choose this color and the line weight. Now programmatically we will need to select everything. So I think I'll need to copy that code as well. So I'll just copy this, select all items from that file to this file. So now we'll just run this code. Just run this from here itself. I'll run this. All the shapes are selected. Now we'll just group them together. Now the final thing what you want to do is you will need to just cut this from this file and paste it in the other file. I'll just say Ctrl X and go back to the first file and paste it here. And you will need to arrange this, just align center and align middle. See, while aligning you will also need to make sure that this is set to align to the margin or align to the page. Okay, then only it will be aligned to the page accordingly. So now we are done. So just I'll just scroll this and check whether everything is perfect. So this is lovely. Now in case if you want to change the color of this graph sheet, the process is very simple. Just move the first group of shapes like this, move it aside, select the first group of shapes and simply go to the format and then shape outline, change the desired color and again apply the color for the second set of group just like this and then align it back, align center and align middle. So in this way you can change the color of your graph sheet according to your necessity. I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. So please stay tuned for the next upcoming awesome content. Until then, it's bye from hbninfotech.com. I've also put this code on my website. You can just go and check it in the description. Thanks a lot for watching.